In order for AOS to truly be a universal solution for doing informational work, the system has to allow any users, machines, or applications to work together regardless of where they are on the planet in a secure manner. Therefore, networking is built into every AOS machine. To accomplish this goal, client computers and branch libraries have the ability to connect to any AOS tree in the world. Every AOS machine has a networking panel in their root environment's header settings. This panel behaves like an application because the root environment application responds to value changes in that panel's interface and control driver values and buttons. At the top of the networking panel are three critical networking values: the Ethernet IP for all, an Internet IP and listening port for libraries. Computers connect to each other in one way and one way only, and involves four requirements. The computer has to know the IP of the target computer. The computer has to know the port the target computer is listening on. There has to be software listening for requests on the port. And the computer has to know the language of the software, which is its set of commands, also known as its driver. If all this is true, then two computers can work together, but that work will only involve exchanging pieces of information. These pieces of information are designed for specific requests. If you make a request to a machine that is not in the set of requests it recognizes, then the computer cannot respond, and neither can a human. Communication in the information universe, regardless of what two things are communicating, always occurs in the same way. There is only the information we have and the information we need, ever. Two things communicate because there exists a need either to get or give information. The requirements for successful communication are universal and always involve connecting, information, and language. So since there is only the information we have and the information we need, then there are only two jobs in the information universe: managing what we have and getting what we need. Our applications do both jobs of keeping the information we have accurate and providing information we need based on the information we have when we need it. It could not possibly be more simple. The only work that ever gets done in the information universe is updating pieces of information we have and adding new pieces of information. This means that two computers connecting is just one example of one information thing needing information from another. The same applies to humans. For one person to work with another, that person has to know where the other is, the other person needs to be listening, and they both have to know the same language to make it all work. The same is true for software subroutines that want to use each other in code. Yep, it's universal. The subject of information and its usage is universal to all living and automated living things, and is a tiny engine that is common across all of creation. A tiny engine that rivals creation in its sheer potential for change when used by intelligent beings, for which I propose a definition. The degree to which a living thing can control its environment is its degree of intelligence. By this definition, an application that never makes a mistake is smarter than one that does. Seemingly so, but that's because the programmer of the error-free software was more aware of how the application should respond in all conditions, nothing more. To get back to networking AOS machines, all we need is an IP and port to connect one AOS machine to another because they all speak the same language. There are, however, rules for AOS networking. The central library of the AOS tree you want to connect to has to know you're coming by recording first a unique username and password for you, a unique machine name, which is the name of your computer, and your AOS license number, which is unique. A user cannot be connected to an AOS tree in more than one location at a time. All branch libraries on an AOS tree have the same security information as the central library and only hold it while active. When a branch library becomes disconnected from its library, security information becomes static and connectivity to its currently connected AOS machines is maintained. Therefore, there is no such thing as guests. There's no need for guests, because AOS public libraries allow interaction with trusted external parties regardless of the nature of the interaction. Public libraries are service providers that work with their library card controls, which are given out to trusted external parties to put in their AOS applications. Library cards are secure because they can be set up to need user credentials to work. These library card controls know how to get their public library's current IP and port and relay the services they provide to the library card holder's application across the Internet, thus opening up limitless possibilities for the programmatic exchange of information between any two AOS machines in any two organizations anywhere in the world. Looking back at the networking panel, Live Connections URL and Live Connections password allow a client computer to get AOS library IP and port information from an Internet address. Central libraries can be set up to publish to the Internet the library connections that remote users can connect to. The central library maintains a list of AOS licenses that are allowed to connect remotely to those published library connections. It encrypts these AOS licenses with the Live Connections password and puts the list in a file at the Internet location where there are other AOS-provided files that respond to requests. All the client computer has to do is know the IP and port to remotely connect to libraries, even if they have dynamic IPs that change occasionally for security reasons. Libraries monitor their external IP and, if changed, report it to the central library for publishing. The user on the client computer presses Get Library Connections from website to get those libraries added to the Library Connections table for connecting to. And as always, AOS-controlled design nodes, whose name does not start with a question mark, can be expressed to provide URL and password programmatically. If the user wants to see all the possible library connections on the local Ethernet, Show Workgroup Ethernet Computers provides this function, which adds all the computers it can see in the workgroup you specify. These computer names can be clicked on to have AOS go get the computer's IP and port. If the computer is a library, then it will test to see if the library is listening and show it if it is. Otherwise, it just validates the IP the computer is listed for. Once the user has a library that is answering, Connect to Selected brings up the login form. Disconnect naturally breaks the connection, and Check Listed Connections causes AOS to verify all the connections in the table in one pass. Offline disconnects all clients and prevents new connections, while Fixed Listening Port sets the port a library will always listen on, so port forwarding for multiple libraries on a local network can be set up to respond to the same Internet IP correctly. To keep library connection validation time down, ports should be as close to 10.454 as possible because libraries start looking for available listening ports starting at 10.454. AutoConnect, if true, causes the AOS machine to attempt to connect when it first becomes active. AutoConnect can also be activated whenever it changes to true and can be expressed. Auto-connecting requires that you have your AutoConnect username and password in your AOS license file. When an AOS machine goes into AutoConnect, it sorts the library connections table records by the order field and begins trying to connect to one of the listed AOS machines starting at the first record and proceeds down the table records until connected or all processed. As you can see, it detected Win7x32 machine listening and provided my saved credentials to connect. Whenever the AOS machine is connected to a library, Connected to shows the AOS library machine name, and inactivity minutes before logout disconnects after a specified period of no mouse moves and no keystrokes if a value exists. AOS branch libraries and client computers keep their connections active by pinging their library every few seconds. Therefore, there's no absolute need for a clean disconnect. because the library destroys a connection whenever the client stops pinging. The same is true for the reverse. A client will destroy its connection if it stops getting ping responses. Networking status is shown in some manner on all AOS machines. For libraries, the root environment logo will show its library icon whenever any AOS machine is connected to it. On client computers, whenever the library is connected, a green dot will appear in the upper right corner of the root environment's form icon. This is the second indicator that can always be seen regardless of debug mode. The program sequence running yellow indicator in the lower right of every program environment's form icon when a program is running, and the library connected indicator in the top right corner of the root environment's form icon. A third indicator that is not always seen is the missing data source indicator, which is a red dot that appears in the upper left corner of the program environment's form. Also, whenever an AOS machine connects or disconnects, or any of the AOS machines on the AOS tree change the design of their shared collections, the entire AOS network is updated with the changes. If the Data Explorer is open when an AOS tree change occurs, the icon will have a red border indicating that the AOS tree you're looking at has changed. The Explorer is a dialog task, which shows the currently accurate AOS tree whenever it is open, but does not change while it's open. So, the bottom line for AOS networking is to programmatically or manually select an entry in the connections table and tell AOS to connect to it. The library connections table is fully programmable, so maintaining the table regardless of your configuration of the AOS tree libraries you connect to on a regular basis can easily be accomplished. In AOS, connecting to an AOS tree simply expands an AOS machine's addressable data and services because, as mentioned in other videos, there's no such thing as writing directly to a piece of information regardless of where it is. AOS provides a value-centric approach to programming, which means that values and lists, which are the only true data variables in any solution, manage their own data because they have expressions that instruct them how to do so when and in what conditions of the solution. That is programming pure and simple, and that is AOS networking.